Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
So a stretch is different from impossible. It's important to stretch yourself, but impossible is a totally different story. Now, I'm actually recording this on our last day in Kauai. So I'm walking around our condo right now. And so you're going to hear a little bit of background noise. A little breeze, a little ocean, little fucking new people coming in. They're all excited to be in Kauai. Being loud. Actually, it's been quite quiet most of the time here in Kauai. Beautiful island. Beautiful, beautiful. Still love Maui a little bit better. I think still a special place for us is Maui, but it's been great to come out to a new space, a new adventure with just my husband over this last week. Hashtag date week. But let's talk about this. There's stretching yourself, and then there's throwing your throwing your name in the hat of something that is just like not possible. So my husband has kind of really been going back and forth over an investment he's made into his business and into his we're going to say like a coaching program that is would definitely benefit our marriage, would benefit him personally and his business and really all realms. And when it started to kind of uncover what everything entailed, what he would be required to do over the next 12 months, and knowing what he clearly wants within our marriage, what he clearly wants with as a dad to our sons, Tyson and Kai, what he wants with his health, he just really took a look at it, and his gut and what he wanted was like, yeah, I can do this, I can do it, I can make it happen, right? And that's very much who Ed and I are. It's very much how we show up within our life, and that may be very much of how you show up in your life too, sister or brother. However, there's having that, like, I can do this, it's a stretch, but I can make it happen. And then there's like, this shit ain't ever gonna happen. And with the program that I was looking at, it was the latter. It was like, if this shit was to happen, then, things would have to dramatically change, and the things that you really want within your life cannot be there. The things you want in your business, the time you want to be able to invest in our marriage with your children, with your health, And I think even a bigger piece is, there's listening to your gut, right? There's listening to the voice and really following. And then there's sometimes getting caught up in the excitement, the idea of something. You know how like when people get married, and maybe this was your experience, right? People think it's about the wedding. When you're going through that whole experience and you're engaged, everything's kind of cool and dreamy and exciting. You're so in love, and everything's so fresh and new. You think it's all about the wedding. And I remember having the experience with our wedding. We got married in June 2000. We've been married for 17 years now. We were together for 7.5 years prior to this. We've been together almost 25 years now. And we had a very simple wedding. We were in chiropractic college. We didn't have a lot of money. I got a dress at like one of these like grad shop like places in the mall. I think it was like a grad dress or a bridesmaid dress or something. Very kind of simple, just white dress. It was like $100. I think we got Ed's suit I think we got like some kind of men's store. I don't know. We got married on the beach in Santa Cruz. It's about 25 of our friends and some close family. And our good friend Guy, who has since passed away, married us. And it was perfect. And it was the morning. We got married actually in the morning on a Saturday. It was at 9:30 in the morning. Because then we had a lunch reception because we had a very tight budget being students. So we're reading stuff like, well, if you have lunch, people don't really drink that much. And we weren't even drinking then either. So we got, stuff at Trader Joe's, and we got food from the whole local Whole Foods, and all of our friends were kind of part of the wedding. It's so fun. I still have friends that say to me, man, that was like the best wedding. And it was the most like simple thing in the world. Didn't have any dancing. It was none of that shit. And the wedding was done by maybe, Jesus, everybody's leaf blowing this morning. And it was done by maybe, 3 o'clock. And it was perfect. And I remember waking up the next morning and being like, oh God, like first of all, was this relief of God, there's no more like wedding shit to do, right? Like, glad that's done. And then as I reflect back on then to now, it's like, man, I had no idea when the real work of marriage was going to really start, right? And really what was required, and you can get caught up in all the excitement of the wedding. When really the wedding, although it can be a very important day in your life, it's just a fucking day, right? It's a day. It's a day expressing your love, amongst family and friends, which is wonderful and beautiful to celebrate that. But it's a fucking day. And it's not about the wedding. And it's easy to get caught up the same ways it's easy for anybody in this certain circumstance to get caught up in like, I can do it, and like, yeah, and like pump yourself up and that kind of thing. And then there's another that you really look back and say, okay, wait a second, let me just pause for a moment. Let me just take a look. Number one, is this really what I want? Number two, is this realistic? Right? Those of you that have coached with me or that will coach me in the future, or those in the sisterhood or will be in the sisterhood in the future, will understand, and I've talked about a little bit sometimes, of when you're setting these outcomes that you truly want, one of the parameters you have to run by is like, is this realistic? If you were in a business that you just started up and you said, I'm going to create $1 million in the next 90 days, I mean, depending on what you're doing, it's probably not going to be realistic, right? It's cool. Sounds cool, but it's not realistic. And realistic doesn't mean that you hit something that's easy either. You're still going to set something that's a little out of reach, right? It's still tough, but it's realistic. It's doable. It's doable with fucking work and fucking commitment. And so when it came down to this decision, it was just like, man, this is just not realistic, right? There's realistic, and there's reach and doing something that's out of reach. And then there's like, this is fucking impossible, all the shit that's required based on what Ed wants, based on the time that's available, based on what he wants and how he, what he wants with marriage and our kids and his health and business and how he really wants to show up. And he had to be really honest about that. And that's difficult. It's difficult for people like Ed and I to say like, well, no, I literally like this. It's just not possible. Not ready. Not yet. Right? Not yet. Doesn't mean never, but it's not yet. It's no for now. It's maybe no forever. But, there's honesty, right? And it's also understand that when you make a commitment to something, like, it's a fucking commitment. It's a no matter what. It's not a, well, we'll kind of see. I'll say I'm going to do it. And if I just do 60% of something that I think is impossible, that's still good, right? No, motherfucker, that's a lie. That's you saying that you committed to something you didn't fucking commit. In a world that we now live in, that commitment is so loose and doesn't really mean much of anything anymore. Don't be that sister. Be that person that actually shows up and does what she says that she's going to do. And commit no matter what. But you got to be realistic in that respect too. You got to know what you're capable of at that time, right? At that time. So for me in my boxing training right now, so I have a tournament that's coming up in October 21st, 2017, and it is a tournament. It's not a fight, it's a tournament. What a tournament means is that it's a 2-minute round with one opponent. 2 minutes. Now you might, if you've never done any kind of martial arts training or boxing or fighting, you might go 2 minutes, like that's easy. No, that's going to be a long ass 2 minutes. That's a lot of training that leads up to those moments. Right? It's the training. It's a tournament. And there'll be up to 3 women that I would fight, would have a 2-minute round with. If I then win the first 2, then I've won, right? I've gotten gold in that. Let's say if there is 3 opponents. Most likely in my age group, we'll try to get some that are at least like close to my age group. It's probably how it's going to go down. I think with this particular tournament that I'm signed up for, I don't think that there is any more than 2 opponents that you have. Pardon me, 3 opponents. Yeah, 3 opponents? No, 2. I think, anyways. So then if I win the first fight, then I go into the next one. And if I win the first 2, then I've won gold. And then the final 2 women would fight each other for who's going to win silver, who's going to get bronze. If there's just 3 of us. So at most for me would be 3 2-minute rounds. Now I'm going to say 2 because I'm winning. I might go, oh my God, that's only, I might go, listen, Rob, like, just like find me a opponent. Like, I want to get in a fight, man. I want to do 10 rounds, 3-minute rounds, 10 3-minute rounds, or up to that, depending, unless there was a knockout. But see, that's not realistic. 13 months of training leading up to this tournament. 13 months. By the way, that includes all the physical training I've done for decades before this. Different. Because I'm not ready for that yet. It's not realistic for me to jump into that. Not to mention what's really required for a fight. You got to cut weight because you're getting down to a weight that's below you would normally be at. The amount of training that would be required, and that's not what I want when it comes to then being there for my children and for my husband and for myself and for my clients. It's not what I want, right? That's from what I want right now, impossible. And from I know what my coach would say too, because he's going to make sure he's going to put me in a favorable condition and not put me into a fight where I'm not ready for that yet. So, and Rob's understand, it might say like, hey dude, like that's just impossible right now. Like, you can get in the ring, but here's a good possibility that you're gonna get the shit beat out of you. And I don't want you to have that experience. I want you to go in prepared and ready. You're not there yet. So there's stretching yourself and there's impossible. And you gotta know the difference, sister. So here's your more tip for today. What is something that you really wanted to create in your life right now? It could be something within your business, with your marriage, with your children, with your body. And I want you to take a look at that outcome that you have and to ask yourself this question: is it realistic? Is it realistic? Is it realistic? If you said, for example, hey, you know what? The outcome I have is I want to have this experience of feeling more connected to my husband. And, at the end of this, and we're going to measure it, so maybe we'll measure it by date nights or text messages, but I think we're going to be here. And let's say if it's been 10 years since you've truly invested in your marriage in any way, shape, or form, outside of like you're just there in it. Like you haven't invested, you're just showing up. You're just kind of like punching a clock when it comes to your marriage. And if you expect at the end of, say, like 3 months or 9 days, you think you're going to be in a certain place in your marriage, it's like, that's just not realistic. You haven't put in the time yet. It's going to take time. So whatever that outcome is that you were looking to accomplish within your life, sister, is to really ask yourself this question, like honest question. Is this realistic? Now, here's something that can happen, okay? There's a fine line when you ask yourself this question. Because the truth is what I'm asking you to really consider with this, right? It's like, just really ask yourself, like, is this realistic? But guess who may show up? That motherfucker resistance. And his other good friend, fear. And doubt, and worry, and all those other bullshit artists. That might say, working out 3 times a week, who's gonna watch the kids? You're not being a good mother. You're being selfish. All that kind of like negative shit where your mind will be such a liar with that. So don't go to that place. That's not realistic. That's just succumbing to all the bullshit. That's not accepting that your mind is a liar and will tell you no for a lot of things that are realistic. So really sit with that. What is the truth in this? And that outcome you've set up, is it realistic? And if the answer to that question is no, then course correct. So the example I gave, if I said, yeah, I'm gonna do a fight. Well, then course correct might be, well, how about I start with the tournament? Right? That's still something that's difficult, but it's reachable. It's still out of reach. It's not something I could walk in and do tomorrow. I mean, I guess I could, and we'll see how it goes, but I don't have enough time sparring. I have a lot of time training. I don't have enough time sparring yet to really have the outcome I want, which is to win. So again, the outcome you're looking at, is it realistic? And number 2 piece of that is, if it's not realistic, where do you need to course correct to make it realistic? To make it still out of reach, difficult, challenging, a stretch, but realistic. Because there is a difference, sister. And these types of conversations, we go deep inside the sisterhood. So I know a lot of you have been listening to podcasts for a while. This is the very first time, and this message is resonating with you, sister. Listen, you can take all the more tips that I talk about here in the podcast and string them all together and get incredible results. But the honest truth is, the realistic thing is that most of you will not do that. It's too hard to do this shit in isolation. Being part of a powerful group of women who are committed to change like you is what gets change within your life. Having that accountability of others who are like you, having the association of others, having an action plan of actual structures, tips, procedures, systems, and how to put this into place so it's not just talk, but there's action. It's strategic. It's practical. And to have access to me as your powerful coach. And that's all inside a closed Facebook group coaching program called The Sisterhood. So to be able to get your 7-day free trial, which is a gift to you, my sister, for listening to the podcast, I want you to head over to drkarenosmond.com/sisterhood. If you're listening on your phone, and you can actually hit the little I button if you're on an iPhone, and that'll give you all the show notes. You'll see there's actually a clickable link. You can just click on it. It'll bring you right through the Sisterhood. And you can opt in for your 7-day free trial today. So I will talk the next episode, sister. A life of more. It's just one step away from you doing the fucking work every single day. I love and appreciate you. Mahalo and aloha.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosburn.com/newsletter.